Welcome to Webisode 7 of the Science of Creation series by the Archive of Nations. This Science of Creation webisode entitled Melanin, the Universe's Gift to the Gods covers the reality that the carbon, organic, melanin-abundant people of the world are generally believed to be more in tune with nature by living in peace and harmony with the world and its inhabitants, therefore leading to spiritualism. The hybrid albinos or melanin recessive people, however, have generally been more inclined to control and dominate nature, leading to materialism. Cosmologically, pale and non-pale view the world differently, and it is primarily due to cultural influences and environmental conditions. In other words, ethnic differences are the results of different patterns of human progression over thousands of years of being separated in specific geological regions of the Earth. Some people have evolved in cold, resource-limited environments, whereas others have evolved in tropical and resource-plentiful environments. Depending on the environment, one can develop thought patterns around materialism or spiritualism. In the following webisode, we will relate the material and spiritual realms of our existence to melanin, and explain how melanin is the universal gift from the gods. Within this webisode, we take excerpts from Dr. Jewel Pookrum from her introduction to Dr. Layla Africa's book African Holistic Health, where we get a small intro to melanin and its importance. We then follow with an amended work by Kwesi Aranium-Ta Akin, Race and True Methods of Investigation. This specific article can be found in the Adwuzum section of the third issue of Afuraka and Afurakate. Our third author is Dr. Owens T. Moore, the author of The Science of Melanin, Dispelling the Myths, and we encourage you to purchase his literature directly from his website. Finally, we take our final excerpts from Haru Hotep Tar, the author of the book entitled The Power of the Ancients, Their Attributes and Elements in You. The Archive of Nations has selected these four authors, as between them we are able to provide you with more than enough knowledge to give you a thorough understanding of melanin and how it affects you, the melanin-dominant being. So let us begin. Man, heal thyself. This axiom is the foundation upon which the original carbon, organic Afar Inca and Amur Inca medical systems were founded. The carbon organic African healing arts were extraordinary because all physical, mental, and spiritual phenomena were studied, understood, practiced, and taught to its entire society, whereas the hybrid albino European healing arts were kept secret from the European masses and applied as the European physicians saw fit. Legal statutes had to be erected within the hybrid albino European civil structure to ensure and maintain an ethics of medical standards. The hybrid albino Europeans studied, practiced, and taught their healing arts only to physicians and primarily from its mundane aspect. Their understanding of science and nature was only understood through their perception of their basic physical senses, being, vision, taste, touch, hearing, and smell. Dr. Layla Africa has succinctly and accurately explained in his book African Holistic Health the neglect of the European medical system to teach its practitioners how to develop their higher senses, to assist in gaining a deeper understanding of and an accurate alignment with nature. This lack of alignment and understanding of the profoundness of nature stimulated for practitioners of the European medical arts to create pseudo-technologies such as radios, televisions, X-ray machines, laser detection, and projection devices to assist in healing themselves. This failure of the Europeans to understand the subtleties of light, which is the life force energy, has caused much suffering and death amongst people throughout the world. Before the occurrence of the decline of the consciousness of the carbon organic African healer, the ancestral teachers of the African healing arts understood and taught its practitioners that 1. All things in nature were related. 2. All matter in nature originated from the one divine source referred to as the All-in-All. 3. All creation was related and similar, but each living organism was original and unique. And 4. All life and matter was created for a specific purpose and for a specific divine reason. The carbon organic African healing arts required all of its practitioners to undergo an intense study of self and to understand how oneself was unique, yet related to the whole, and to be able to identify one's divine life's purpose. The ancient carbon organic African tribes, families, and clan societies required all of its citizens to identify themselves, just as the practitioners of its healing arts were required to go through the ambiguous rites of passage ceremonies. The most unique property of the ancient African societies was their melanin content. Our ancient African ancestors were well aware of the complete bands of life forces composing the entire electromagnetic spectrum. Through melanin, they were capable of perceiving and interacting with television waves, radio waves, cosmic waves, laser, X-rays, etc. Through their activated melanin, they perceived visions of the far and near past, present and future projected upon their mind the same way that images are projected to us today through our TVs, through their neuromelanin. They were able to hear conversations afar and converse with people afar using radio waves perceived and transmitted through their neuromelanin. Melanin has the capacity to resonate and respond to all frequencies of the electromagnetic spectrum. Our ancient African ancestors understood that all frequencies of light had to be transduced or funneled through melanin before it could be applied directly to the physical body. Light as it exists in this dimension is a vast expression of forces, which is responsible for creating all physical and subtle phenomena in our world. Light is the unified collection of photons. Photons are the smallest measurable units of the life force energy. As the motion and speed of photons vary, the character of the light changes, as does its activity. TV waves, microwaves, radio waves, cosmic waves, X-rays, etc. are all forms of the life force energy acting in unique ways, simply because of the difference of the speed and motion the photons within each band are exhibiting at any particular time. The frequency or rates of movement of life force, known as light, relative to our conscious awareness, determines our ability to perceive one, three, or all bands of life force, which is part collectively known as the electromagnetic spectrum. The amount of melanin contained within one's body establishes innately the potential of an individual to perceive and interact with melanin. However, the mindset of the individual determines if one can consciously perceive or interact and manipulate the multiple frequencies of the electromagnetic spectrum. An individual with minimal melanin content, but with a focused and receptive mind set to a particular frequency of light, can perceive and interact with a particular band of light more successfully than a deeply melanated person, who is absolutely unaware of light and its effects relative to him or her. A good example of this was the ability of Marie Curie, a melanin-recessive woman. Scientist Maria Salomea Sklodowska-Curie, known simply as Marie Curie, was a Polish and naturalized French physicist and chemist who conducted pioneering research on radioactivity. She was the first woman to win a Nobel Prize, the first person to win a Nobel Prize twice, and the only person to win a Nobel Prize in 2 scientific fields. Marie Curie, who was able to emission from radium without the use of a machine, she was able to perceive this intuitively. However, because she was melanin recessive, her physical body was not an adequate transducer and neutralizer of this frequency of light, therefore, she died of radiation exposure. Radium was a well-known medical remedy in our ancient healing system for certain diseases. Our ancient carbon organic African healers were aware of the energy it emitted and handled it appropriately. They were melanin dominant and could handle such energy with proper training, therefore not creating health hazards to their patients or themselves. All frequencies of light beyond the physical spectrum cannot be applied directly to humans without grave consequences to our health. However, if these frequencies are passed through a natural transducer and equalizer before they apply to humans, the light becomes a healing agent as opposed to being hazardous. The African healers realized that the body of the melanin-dominant healer was a natural transducer and equalizer for all forms of light. One of the major and prolonged areas of study for the African healer was to understand the various bands of light and how to transduce or channel them through their body as a natural tool, correctly so as to effect a spontaneous cure for the ill. With the colonization of Africa and carbon organic peoples globally and the refusal of 9 ether carbon organics and their descendants to acknowledge their melanin, allowed the tenets of the hybrid albino European healing arts to dominate the world's present healthcare institutions and establish the standards for our present medical educational system through the use of pseudo-technologies. The present medical system is exposing its sick to pure frequencies of light without the proper human transduction systems, causing more disease and increased rates of death, aka what they call chemotherapy. As we have moved into the 21st century, much about the hidden natural phenomena of this planet will and is being revealed. Each species of life must be functional and active within the dominion of its divine purpose. Carbon organic Africans, as the innate and natural transducer for the healing forces of light, are unconsciously and silently abdicating their divine purpose for existing. Carbon organic Africans and their descendants are the natural healers of this planet. They must begin to use their natural healing agent, light, to remove the morbid disease factor that has begun to take over Earth. Melanin and health, if studied by carbon organic tribes, families, and clans and their descendants, will quite definitely begin to awaken the dormant genes within ourselves that contain the ancient knowledge of how to use light properly. It will also reveal to us how to redevelop the appropriate technology, which will effect immediate cure instead of disease. Melanin-dominant humans of the world, physicians, heal ourselves and take your proper place within our society of true gods and goddesses. Let it be known that carbon organic tribes, families, and clans not only have greater levels of sun heat genes than the hybrid albinos and their offspring, but we have a true quality of melanin that no other race possesses, according to the author Kwesi Ray-Nyum-Ta-Akin. Melanin is in a number of ways a physical receptor and transformer of energy. However, melanin's capacity to receive and transform energy is not at all separate in carbon organic people from our spirit bodies. This is directly related to our inheritance of melanin from the abusum or our etheric parents and the relationship that Ray, being the sun, have with spirit and therefore with us. The abusum, which we introduced in our previous webisode 9, ether being fact, whom are the male and female, positive and negative entities making up the divine black substance of space some refer to as dark matter or ether. A portion of this divine black substance is what comprised the primordial matter of the newly formed planet Earth. A portion of the primordial Earth's black substance is what comprised the original landmass of Earth as it was taking shape. This first landmass rose up from underneath the surface of the primordial ocean to become the first landmass/continent of Earth, encompassing all landmasses and not the misconception of just the continent known as Africa today, which we will prove geologically in future webisodes. The Great Spirit, Ra, moved within and through this landmass to give it life and to activate it. Original black landmass thus inherited the title, Ka, being spirit as an earth guardian, from the original universal spirit inherent in what is referred to as space, for this earth guardian, like its antecedents, received the energy of the sun, Re. As the etheric energies known as Tav, whom fashioned the physical bodies of the original carbon organic tribes, families, and clans known as the Tar Danig or Pygmies from the Earth's original landmass. A portion of this black substance of Earth was incorporated into our bodies. This black substance constituting energy is matter, as well as the etheric portion known as Ak, to the carbon organic ancient Temerian Africans, is called melanin in the skin and organs and neuromelanin in the brain. Melanin is a key component in many of our cells, including sperm and ovum, and has been continuously transmitted to and by us intergenerationally from the original carbon organic tribes, families, and clans who inhabited Earth, our first ancestresses and ancestors, as the fourth level of gods. It is an actual derivative of the original cosmic melanin or dark matter. Because of the structure of our bodies and spirits, carbon organic tribes, families, and clans have a fully functional or active melanin system. Those who degenerated into the hybrid albinos, referred to as Caucasians or erroneously referred to as white people, and their offspring not only suffered a loss of melanin externally, manifesting as a loss of color, after many amongst humanity sought to find shelter in the mountainous cave regions after the Great Cataclysm. The quality of the melanin they retained was and is perverted and corrupt, as detailed in The Iceman Inheritance by Michael Bradley. Because they incarnate as spirits of disorder, any melanin existing within them is a corrupt container and preserver of their disordered energy, referred to as 6 ether, and a repulsor of ordered energy known as 9 ether, as shown in our previous webisode, 9 ether being's fact. Their corrupt melanin is therefore inactive. Active melanin is melanin that can receive, process, and utilize the spiritual power of the abusum, aka etheric realm. Inactive melanin is melanin, which repels the divine of the etheric realm and the all. This inactive melanin is that which exists within the hybrid albinos and their offspring, being those referred to today as Caucasians, Asians, Arabs, pale Hindus, some darker Hindus, migrant Asians whom are misnomered Native Americans, white Hispanics, etc. There is a distinct difference, physiologically and spiritually, between the melanin of 9-ether carbon organic beings and all other lesser melanated beings, including those of color mentioned above. All carbon organics are people of color. However, all people of color are not carbon organic 9-ether beings and vary between 9-ether and 6-ether genetically. There are clear distinct markers existing within the structure of melanin and within the structure of the spirit body to distinguish 9-ether carbon organics from all other groups of individuals. We must utilize our own tools of investigation and our own methodology in order to uncover the laws governing our physiological and spiritual makeup as it relates to identity. Such investigation properly addresses the most critical component of identity, the reincarnation of the spiritual personality through specific blood circles. It is immature and foolish for carbon organic tribes, families, and clans to embrace the false paradigm promoted by the pseudoscientific community of the hybrid albinos and Western academia. At best, the scientific method promoted by the hybrid albinos is hit and miss. In actuality, it is structured as a means by which they may control experiments and control outcomes to support their beliefs, true or false, right or wrong. It is a means by which they can use science to promote lies that span over the course of decades, centuries, and/or millennia. We must not be so blind to fall into the trap of limiting our acquisition of data by following the inadequate methods of those whom are genetically, spiritually, and intellectually inferior. An example of this misguided approach by Western scientists in the field of melanin research is to promote the false and foolish idea, created by hybrid albinos, that no correlation between the levels and distribution of neuromelanin and differences in ethnicity has been observed. Misguided, black, quote, unquote, melanin researchers will repeat this false propagandistic idea for years, even though it is inaccurate, unwittingly supporting the agenda of the hybrid albinos. We have black scientists repeating false doctrines of our evolution from apes in the same foolish manner. How is it that a being becomes a living being? Where does the spirit or animation come from? This most basic question, which was asked and answered conclusively and accurately millions of years ago by carbon organic scientists referred to as alchemy or the scientists of Kemet whom practiced alchemy, cannot be answered through scientific methods promoted by the hybrid albinos and Western medicine. Those whom embrace this limited method cannot answer the most basic and simple question of their own existence, yet purport to instruct us on the idea that race does not exist. What is not clearly understood is that the hybrid albino scientific method is nothing more than a false belief system no different than the other pseudo-religions crafted by the hybrid albinos. Therefore, if the hybrid albinos draw a conclusion that turns out to be accurate, they attribute their discovery to their false belief system called scientific methods. When the same conclusion is proven to be wrong months or years later, they simply claim that the scientific method had not been used correctly. Every day numerous conclusions, promoted as scientific truths for years, are disproved, then another set of scientifically drawn conclusions are used to fill in the gap, comprising the false belief system for a number of years until this set of conclusions are disproven. The false belief system of science thereby refuels itself perpetually. The propaganda has been spread so successfully that many carbon organics the world over who hear the word science or scientific automatically associate it with fact and factual. This association is most often instantaneous in their spirits/minds. Many of us are, thus, proven to have been thoroughly programmed. Such automatic associations are the result of intensive brainwashing. The same hybrid albino who manufactured from the original carbon organic tribes, families, and clans cultures and way of life into the pseudo-religions of Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, Taoism, Buddhism, Hermeticism, etc. are the same hybrid albinos who manufactured the false idea that the scientific method is other than what it truly is, a hybrid albino pseudo-belief system. The carbon organic tribes, families, and clans are the first to have established a true method of spiritual science referred to by different names dependent on the tribe, family, or clan, which consisted of a proper, whole method of research, investigation, examination, inquiry into the order of nature, which is holistic in the true sense of the term. This method produced and continues to produce our intimate knowledge of and innovations within the fields of mathematics, botany, civil and mechanical engineering, law, medicine, thermodynamics, information technology, and more. This method still exists within our ancestral cultures and is available to us. We must simply embrace it. Through our own cultural paradigm, we are able to investigate matters fully. We are able to engage all of our faculties and uncover truths that the hybrid albinos are 1, incapable of perceiving, and 2, unwilling to admit. This method must be utilized in all of our inquiries, including our investigation of the structure and properties of melanin. It is foolish for us to repeat the lie that race is a social construct. There is no biological basis for race. This is an absurd manifestation of carbon organic tribes, families and clans by continuing to allow themselves to be enslaved by the hybrid albinos. It is a political power play on the part of the hybrid albinos to force carbon organics into the position of trying to deny race. For the hybrid albinos world over recognize the imminent danger of increasing numbers of carbon organic tribes, families, and clans fully reclaiming our identity of self and most of all our land inheritance, and recognizing the hybrid albinos to be who they are. The pressure increases on the hybrid albinos as they realize that while their population declines worldwide, decade after decade, carbon organic tribes, families, and clans have the highest population growth rate worldwide. The hybrid albino must attempt to make us deny ourselves and therefore our natural aversion to them. In this manner, we will accept them, thereby perpetuating our own enslavement. The cancerous cells must convince the healthy cells to welcome them with open arms so that we may be consumed. The hybrid albinos have a policy which governs their interaction with carbon organic tribes, families, and clans. The fundamental components of this policy have always been to 1. Increase the 9-ether carbon organics death rate. 2. Decrease the 9-ether carbon organic birth rate for those of us who survive. The policy states that the hybrid albinos must 1. Increase the 9-ether carbon organics incarceration rate. 2. Increase the 9-ether carbon organics addiction rate. For those of us who survive these plans, the hybrid albinos policy is to 1. Increase the 9-ether carbon organic spiritual incarceration rate through pseudo-religion and pseudo-scientific facts. 2. Increase our psychological and spiritual addiction rate through the perpetuation of self-hatred, self-denial, and the perpetuation of the image of hybrid albino culture and people as the universal and highest aspiration of humanity. Many carbon organic scientists have failed to realize that in their effort to engage in objective scientific inquiry, they have actually submerged themselves yet deeper into a hybrid albino pseudo-belief system. The fact that the incarnation of a spirit through a specific blood circle is not included in their investigation of the notion of race and identity is proof that they have embraced a hybrid albino belief system. It must be remembered that it is the hybrid albino, through the false religions of Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and atheism, another belief system in which they believe that there is no supreme being, that have taught us the false notion that reincarnation is not real. Carbon organic scientists have accepted this belief and incorporated it, consciously or unconsciously, into their method of analysis. This is why the conclusions they draw will always be limited at best, or worse, wholly inaccurate. They have been pushed into perpetuating the false belief that the spirit world cannot be measured, quantified, analyzed, and has no bearing on the definition of identity, that the physiological structures of the human body are the only thing they have to work with. Again, this is a false belief. A proper investigation of the physiological structure of the body will reveal components of our physiological makeup that undergird DNA, which hybrid albino researchers have yet to uncover. Here, you will find the physiological markers for race. However, if you are a slave on a hybrid albino pseudo-scientific plantation, you will wait for decades or centuries for your hybrid albino leaders to decide that it is okay for you to learn about these primary structures. Until then, you will state that science has proven that race does not exist. The investigative tools of the carbon organic tribes, families, and clans' ancestral culture, including various forms of oracular divination and integrated empirical observation, have already disproven the claims of the hybrid albino concerning race and have shown conclusively that race does exist, spiritually and physiologically. Carbon organics have already been trained in a hybrid albino belief system, a scientific method based on proving a hypothesis or belief or simply an educated guess. It is time that you now become trained in your own 9-ether carbon organic knowledge system. Stop holding yourselves and those of our people who study your work hostage on the plantation of hybrid albino pseudoscientific inquiry. Race exists and has been delineated through our own knowledge systems. Have enough respect for yourself to embrace your ancestry, your expression of your ancestors, and become trained in its methods of investigation so that you may avail yourself of the fullness of your culture. All carbon organic tribes, families, and clans have access to the tools to fully investigate these matters for ourselves, which is exactly what T. Owens Moore, Ph.D. undertook when he authored The Science of Melanin in the mid-1990s. T. Owens Moore, Ph.D. is trained as a physiological psychologist. He is a graduate of Lincoln University, and he has an MS and a Ph.D. from Howard University. For more than 20 years, he has served as a college professor, a biomedical researcher, and an African-centered scholar and activist. He has served as an assistant professor at Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, and an associate professor and chairperson of the Department of Psychology at Clark Atlanta University, and professor and chair of the Department of Psychology at Fayetteville State University in North Carolina. His specialty courses are both in the field of neuroscience and African-centered psychology. Throughout his academic career, he has been actively involved in the departments of psychology, biology, and Africana and women's studies. In addition, he is a co-founding member of the Neuroscience Institute at Morehouse School of Medicine. He was also an active member of the National Science Foundation-funded Center for Behavioral Neuroscience in Atlanta, Georgia. He has written numerous scientific articles, and he is a popular blog talk radio host on the Melanology Hour. He is the author of several books: The Science of Melanin, Dispelling the Myths, The Science of Melanin, the second edition, Dark Matters, Dark Secrets, Why Darkness Matters, The Power of Melanin in the Brain, Clue Seeker, A Journey Back Through Time to Search for an Identity, and The Spiderfly Proverbs, a practical guide for loving relationships. He is currently working on 2 additional manuscripts, The Third Eye and Space Travel, Using Ancient Wisdom to Unlock the Keys to the Future, and Psychoneuromelannology. Let us look at some excerpts from his book The Science of Melanin that we highly recommend that you purchase directly from his site posted in the links. The nervous system and skin are 2 essential biological systems linking the internal milieu of humans to the exterior world. They act as specialized vehicles to allow humans to maintain contact with the material and spiritual realms. It is proposed that melanin is the molecule both in the human body and in the universe that acts as a conduit between the visible material and the unseen spiritual world. The material plane consists of tangible substances, while the spiritual plane consists of metaphysical experiences beyond physical reach. Although substances in the material plane can be physically manipulated, the spiritual plane can only be perceived. There is an intricate connection between the material spiritual planes, and the melanin in the skin and the nervous system helps provide metaphysical experiences. The universe is the totality of existence. Just as our bodies evolved from a single cell called an embryo, the universe is a system created out of one entity. More clearly, the human body is a microcosm of the macrocosm, a replica of the surrounding universe. Here is a list of natural phenomena and biological elements that symbolize each phenomenon. 1. The spiral Milky Way galaxy is the same as a spiral DNA molecule. 2. The 9 planets is the same as the 9 holes in our body and the 9 major endocrine glands. 3. Melanin is in the sky and melanin is in the skin. 4. High content of H2O, compared to mass on Earth and in the body. And 5. Divine universal consciousness interconnected with mental consciousness. Modern science demonstrates that there are electromagnetic forces, light and sound waves emitted in the universe. Therefore, there is quite literally energy around us that we cannot see. Another form of energy that is not well understood pertains to consciousness. For example, consciousness itself emits energy that dwells in the universe. Psychologically, a person's conscious or consciousness refers to a state of awareness of what is happening with or around oneself. A person who lacks consciousness will be thinking on the level of a beast. A radio has been designed to transmit sound waves into what we hear on the radio. What we hear depends upon the channel or the signal accessed. The different channels correspond to frequencies or amplitude of sound waves. Consciousness works in a similar fashion. A person's level of awareness is associated with the programmed content of a person's mind. Therefore, evil-minded people will be attracted to situations associated with evil. Good-natured people will be attracted to positive situations. Certainly, a person can oscillate between the extremes of good and evil, but physical and mental status is what determines a person's ability to change channels and tune into different levels of consciousness. According to Alder, 1968, each thought is a vibration with a measurable wavelength. The meditation process is a way a person trains the mind and body to tune into divine universal consciousness. It is interesting to note that many cultures have theories on creation. Usually, a simple story or philosophical concept explains the origin of the universe. The common denominator tends to be quite logically that the world as we know it originated from a thought generated by a creator. Check out the rest of our Science of Creation for full clarity, especially the webisode entitled Tehuti, the All and the Mental Universe. In fact, every thought we have originates in a being whose life is given by a first creator, and therefore an extension or continuation of the creation of the universe itself. Thus, we conceive our world, we create our own individual worlds, lives, and ourselves. The ultimate goal of meditation is to reach divine consciousness, referred to as nirvana in Buddhism. Once people attain nirvana or some other stage of exceptional spiritual consciousness, they are no longer fascinated and trapped by material things and are free to transcend the material world and relate to everything and in spirit of oneness. This unity with the divine consciousness in our universe can be explained by physical science. The atom, as previously discussed in earlier webisodes, is the basic unit of all molecules in our universe. Any material item, i.e. tree, book, car, shoe, helium, ice, etc. that exists in this world vibrates. When you break down all the different forms of substance in the universe, they vibrate on the same level. Even though the hardness, softness, gaseous, liquidity, etc. of substances are different, their atomic structures vibrate on the same level. Moreover, the Dogon people of West Africa believe that the entire universe is moving, man on earth is in motion, and life, even inside the smallest seed of grain, is in the movement, as well as explored by Grial and Dieterlen in 1986. Vera Dorothea Stanley Alder, born October 29, 1898 until May 26, 1984, was an English portrait painter and mystic. She wrote several books and pamphlets on self-help and spirituality. Vera investigated ancient wisdom and established these findings regarding vibration. Both the ancient sages and modern scientists are agreed for everything in life is formed of vibrations. We are told that vibration is the result of force or energy, concentrated in some mysterious way and caused to vibrate, shake, or oscillate at different speeds. The composition of an atom is a tiny vacuum, which this force or energy revolves as a vortex, just as the circle of the sun's aura or zodiac revolves around it. The zodiac contains the planets revolving within it, and the minute zodiac, called the atom, contains also its planets, or electrons as they are called. The difference between one object and another is ultimately a question of vibration. The relationship between vibration and the holistic nature of the universe is currently being investigated in physics, called the Grand Unified Theory. The Grand Unified Theory is a way for Western scientists to explain the metaphysical principles familiar to people in less technologically advanced cultures. Western scientists have reached a point where they are no longer dealing with purely physical or chemical things by pushing upwards through the great scale of vibrations into the clouds of conjecture. Alder, 1968. The Grand Unified Theory hypothesis states that during extreme high temperature conditions, the universe's early moments, quarks and leptons, were inconvertible. Quarks are particles with combinations of electrical charges, and leptons are particles that interact with each other only through electromagnetic and weak forces. Golub and Bruce, 1990. As the temperature of the universe cooled and energies were less available, the quarks and leptons began to acquire distinct identities. According to the grand unified theory, however, the transformation of quarks into leptons and vice versa remains a theoretical possibility. In sum, modern physicists cannot explain how the present variety of forces and subatomic particles could have evolved from an initially homogeneous universe. The concept of consubstantiation, presented by Nobles, 1986, is another way of looking at the fact that everything is made up of an original substance. Therefore, meditation, or the awareness that everything in the universe is connected, can give one a feeling of unity with the Creator. John A. West, 1987, has written a very informative book to help us deal with these metaphysical principles. He shows the connection between vibratory phenomenon and health. According to West, an analysis of vibratory phenomenon and a physical body can be observed in stress and strain of everyday life. For instance, our complex environments take a toll on our emotional and physical faculties. According to West, people go haywire, living near an airport or working in the incessant noise of a factory. Office buildings that recirculate air and make extensive use of synthetic materials create an atmosphere depleted of negative ions. Though undetectable by the senses directly, this is ultimately a vibratory phenomenon on the molecular level and has powerful, measurably harmful effects. People become depressed and irritable, tire easily, and lose resistance to infection. The subsonic and ultrasonic frequencies produced by a wide variety of machinery also exert a powerful and dangerous influence. West continues, the daily life of city dwellers today is technically a form of mild persistent torture, in which victims and victimizers are equally affected. The result is similar to that wrought by deliberate torture. The spiritually strong recognize a challenge, meet it, and surmount it. The rest succumb, become brutalized, apathetic, easily swayed, and men are easily moved to violence or to condoning violence in what they imagine to be their interest. All of this brought about by men professing high ideals, but ignorant of the forces they manipulate. Understanding the nature of the universe and our intimate connection to the cosmos is paramount in terms of influencing human and other natural life forms. Depending on the nature of the forces in the universe, our bodies can either utilize the energy in a positive way or be adversely affected. Our nervous system and melanated skin are specifically designed to harness energies circulating in the universe, and the brain is a transmitting and receiving device for this invisible energy. Although radio and televisions have been developed to pick up pre-existing waves of energy, the brain has evolved to detect the pre-existing conscious waves. West, 1987, postulates the brain is not an evolved organ which, somehow, accidentally over the eons generated a faculty we called consciousness. Rather, it was developed in order to receive and apprehend those aspects of universal consciousness necessary for man to perform his foreordained task, just as a radio does not generate radio waves but receives the waves already there. The nature of consciousness determines the structure of the brain, the nature of sound determines the structure of the ear, the nature of light determines the structure of the eye. With regard to the intimate links between microcosm and macrocosm, West states the following: man is the sum of the principles that represent and organize the universe. He is the self-perfecting product of the grand experiment that is organic life on Earth, embodying within himself the mineral, vegetable, and animal kingdoms. His body is the temple designed to permit him to carry out the right of self-perfection, the only legitimate human goal. All other goals lead to apathy or disaster, as is obvious from any daily newspaper. He continues, man is a model of the universe if he understands himself perfectly. He also understands the universe: astronomy, astrology, geography, geodesy, measure, rhythm, proportion, mathematics, magic, medicine, anatomy, art. All are linked in a grand dynamic scheme. No aspect can be isolated from another and treated as a separate speciality or field without distortion and destruction. Most of West's ideas come from the ancient Kemet and the ancient carbon organic Tamarian people. He has studied ancient African thought and believes, like other Western scholars, that this early thought was superior to the belief systems of today. His research provides evidence that scientists in ancient Kemet created a body of knowledge to help humans master and harness invisible forces in nature. The fact that we have an electromagnetic spectrum informs us about the invisible forces of energy in our environment. The word electromagnetic refers to the nature of the radiation emitted from electromagnetism, which is both electrical and magnetic at the same time and capable of immediately becoming either. For instance, the field around a magnet can attract or repel properties. A similar field is found around anything that is electrically charged. The static electricity from a rug or the various oscillating waves that make up a radio transmission is examples of electromagnetic fields in electricity. Electricity and magnetism are inconvertible. In other words, energy can move back and forth from each state. Magnetism, for example, can be turned into electricity by simply moving a conduction wire in its field. The television broadcast is one example of what happens when you spin a coil of wire between the electromagnets of a generator. What is intriguing about receiving signals from a television broadcast is the construction of the antenna. The antenna is specially constructed to receive emitting waves of energy. For example, an erect wire of correct length on your roof can detect electromagnetic waves and pick out a pulse related to its own length. The waves are then turned into varying electric current. The converted electromagnetic waves reach your electronic equipment and translate into television pictures. An antenna is specially constructed to receive radiant energy from the man-made world of electronics. Of more importance, however, is the natural world where all electromagnetic waves begin. The body responds to man-made as well as natural electromagnetic waves. 9 ether carbon organic African people naturally have kinky, or correct terminology being kingly, wiry, or woolly hair. Non-African people have matted or animal-like hair much like fur. In other words, kingly or wired-like hair is an evolutionary advance since very few animals, sheep, buffalo, yak, etc., have hair similar to African people. Kingly or wire-like hair is constructed like an antenna to absorb more readily those naturally occurring electromagnetic waves in nature. If we look at electromagnetic radiation as a force, we see our stars and planets are giant generators. Furthermore, the positive and negative charges emitted from electromagnetism produced attraction and repulsion. Forces of attraction and repulsion provide the potential for disturbing electromagnetic waves in space to produce disorder amongst stars and planets. The concept of space as an electromagnetic web means that cosmic collisions and/or cosmic creation are the result of disorder in the universe. Rather than viewing space as void or empty, Granger speculates on plasma, dust and gas, and space that is capable of carrying electromagnetic charges. The plasma in space referred to by Granger is dark matter, or in physical biological form, melanin. Western scientists have the technical equipment needed to investigate melanin in our universe, but are bewildered by the findings. They realize there is something out there, but cannot quite figure it out. Treefill, 1993, remarked, "Dark matter was strange stuff. It is all around you, but you can't see it. It's whistling by your ears, but you can't hear. It is arguably the most important material in the universe, but until recently, scientists had no idea that it existed. It will decide the fate of the universe, but we have no idea what it is." How can scientists after so many centuries still know so little about the working of the cosmos? Although hybrid albino Western Eurocentric thinkers are dumbfounded by the mysteries of outer space, most non-Western cultures have concepts and activities to express their understanding of the cosmos. In fact, non-Western societies would probably not be amazed by the sudden discovery that interstellar space is not empty or void. In sum, special bioelectronics properties of melanin are critical for the energy that is constantly transmitted to and from outer space. It is this dark matter, melanin, that maximizes the connection of the melanated human bodies to the spirit of the universe. Through the elaborate world of electromagnetism, our skin and nervous system links our internal melanin to the cosmic melanin to allow us to tune in with cosmic nature. The grand unification theory is a theoretical viewpoint created by hybrid albino Eurocentric thinkers to explain the holistic nature of the universe. Chaos theory is another hybrid albino Eurocentric formulation devised to explain another phenomenon known as randomness that is difficult to interpret when one holds a linear Newtonian view of the world. Both the grand unification theory and chaos theory are theoretical attempts by Western scientists to explain phenomena that are beyond the scope of logical deduction and reasonable thinking. In a series of articles in the journal Science, Robert Paul has written about chaos theory and how it relates to disorder and randomness in certain physical and biological systems. It is a mathematical concept rather difficult to define precisely, but can be thought of as a deterministic randomness, deterministic because it arises from intrinsic causes, not from some extraneous noise or interference. Randomness refers to irregular, unpredictable behavior. Historically, hybrid albino Eurocentric thinkers believed the world was orderly and clock-like. Observing, manipulating, and controlling the environment could explain everything. For these reasons, it is easy to see why modern hybrid albino Eurocentric thinkers are primarily concerned with forces that are tangible or materialistic. Their way of viewing the world has only been able to explain things that can be reasoned, things that are materialistic and non-spiritual. If the phenomenon cannot be controlled or manipulated and explained rationally, they give it little credence. Furthermore, the phenomena must be able to be counted and measured, otherwise, arguments are put forth against its very existence. Inability to predict phenomena is a serious problem for hybrid albino Western scientists. Rational-minded thinkers thrive on controlling phenomena, and prediction is an essential element to reasoning and thinking about a problem. Losing the ability to predict and control phenomena has sent shockwaves throughout Western science. The formulation of chaos theory is Western science's way of saying we cannot explain everything. Presently, chaos theory is used to study complex phenomena in nearly every scientific discipline. Chaos allows order to be found in such diverse systems as the atmosphere, dripping faucets, or the heartbeat. Chaos theory is being used to explain things that standard science cannot, and it offers new tools to study irregular behavior. It is a type of randomness that appears in certain physical and biological systems and is intrinsic, rather than caused by outside noise or interference. Chaotic systems operate under a wide range of conditions and are therefore adaptable and flexible. This plasticity allows systems to cope with an unpredictable and changing environment. The organizing capabilities of melanin may directly influence certain physical and biological systems. Since chaos theory emphasizes that order is found in disorder, we can speculate that the ambiguous presence of melanin and the physical properties of this substance provide a sense of order in a seemingly chaotic world from a non-Western point of view. Dogon philosophy states that knowledge lies in knowing man. Moreover, all that is not man is obtainable knowledge because man has been given the ability to know that which is not himself. The Dogon people believe that the world is conceived as a whole. This whole was thought, realized, and organized by one creator God in a complete system, which includes disorder. The Dogon seem to have understood the meaning of chaos before modern hybrid albino Eurocentric thinkers realized that the universe is not clock-like. It is a mathematical concept rather difficult to define precisely, but can be thought of as a deterministic randomness, deterministic because it arises from intrinsic causes, not from some extraneous noise or interference. Randomness refers to irregular, unpredictable behavior. Next, let us look at the intricate system in the human body that is the driving force behind metaphysical experiences. We intend to delve much deeper into the subject in the upcoming webisode entitled Spirit Realm, Mediums, and the Media, where we will discuss the nature of the chakra system and how it functions as a mediator between the chaotic mesh of the spiritual and material realms of existence. We have discussed several types of energy forces in the universe. It is possible for this energy to be received by the human body in certain locations of the head and torso. The locations or vital force centers are known as chakras. Similarly, there are locations on Earth that are known to be centers of attraction for cosmic energy, e.g. the pyramids in Egypt or Stonehenge in England. If one can understand how the essential polarities of spirit and matter come into existence through vital force centers, Then it will be much easier to analyze the relationship between the universe's energy and the chakras. Chakras, as well as auras and electromagnetic fields, are as old as the Earth itself. The chakra system can be considered as an energy system, which keeps the body and mind alive and healthy. The word chakra is most commonly used to describe the energy system. It is a Sanskrit word meaning wheel of light. The wheels of light emanating from the chakra system are manifested between the opposing poles of spirit and matter. In man, the essential polarity of opposites has its axis along the spinal column, in which spirit has its manifestation at the crown of the head, while matter, in its densest form, manifests at the base of the spine. Spirit and body are the basic polarities, and thought is the relationship between the two. In relation to the Dogon belief that the conception of the whole world was a first thought, only a disciplined person can attain divine universal consciousness. The intertwining of mental consciousness, thought, and divine universal consciousness is maximized during meditation. The different levels of consciousness we referred to earlier pertain to the life force vibrating at different frequencies, and chakras respond to different levels of vibration. In any system, a potential difference between the two poles gives rise to a flow between them. The nervous system contains the framework for conducting the flow of electricity in the body. In electrical terms, this potential difference is a voltage, and the amount of flow between the poles can be measured as current. The current flows up the spine spirally like DNA and the Milky Way. The ions we obtain from digestible substances give our bodies the power to generate electricity. As our nervous systems generate electricity, there is a flow of current that creates a magnetic field around the body. In man, the polarity of spirit and body gives rise to a magnetic field, which surrounds the body in the form of an aura. Auras are often spoken about in general conversation. However, there are additional metaphysical terms that describe physical fields around a person's body. In order to explain how energy in the universe could affect human behavior via the chakra system, we will briefly explain 7 states of matter that are known to make up our physical bodies. Everything in life, from celestial bodies to pebbles on earth, are interpenetrated by 7, for want of a better word, planes of existence. Alder, 1968. For example, man possesses a body made up of solids, liquids, and gases. These 3 physical elements make up 3 material states in the physical world. Outside of the physical body is a fine web through which the electric and radiating life forces are fed into the physical body from the outer universe. This fine web in which the chakras communicate is known as the ethereal world or etheric realm, which we covered in our previous webisode entitled 9 Ether Beings Fact. The next plane is the astral world. Emotions and desires are manifested in this sphere, stirring and motivating us. It is a world of attraction and repulsion. The world of thought, or mind, supersedes the astral world in the form of the mental world. All levels of mental consciousness fluctuate throughout the mental world to give us the ability to gain knowledge. It is important to note that thought is not confined to the brain. The brain merely acts similarly to a telephone switchboard, conducting all thoughts what pass through it. The last plane is the all-encompassing spiritual world. Man's spiritual body is composed of the most high-frequency vibrations of all. By functioning in a spiritual body, one can get beyond time and space, because spirit embraces all and flows uninterruptedly through everything. It is possible to contact the world of spirit within our microcosmic bodies, because it is the life of the spiritual world which interpenetrates and sustains us. Most texts on chakras discuss 7 spiritual centers in the human body that are visualized by people with extrasensory perception, i.e. psychics. Each chakra vibrates at a different speed and emits different colors to the clairvoyant eye. From observing the location of chakras, it has been confirmed that the 7 areas are associated with specific organs in the body. The connections are associated with very important internal organs. Therefore, a malfunctioning organ or physiological system can cause diminished energy transformation, since a more in-depth examination of the entire chakra system would exceed the confines of this webisode. We will cover this further in later webisodes. Our interest in mentioning the chakras is to show the viewer that there are physiological systems in the body capable of channeling the energies of the universe. The chakra system is the junction site for the material-spiritual connection. The chakras represent the multi-communication interface among the nervous system, the skin, and the spiritual world. Individuals who possess a degree of clairvoyance can see chakras radiate in the ethereal body, where they are represented by saucer-like depressions or vortices on the surface. When quite underdeveloped, they appear as small circles, about 2 inches in diameter, glowing dully in the ordinary man, but when awakened and vivified, they are seen as coruscating whirlpools, much increased in size and resembling miniature suns. Although we are saying that the nervous system and endocrine system function as interfaces, the chakras emanate through the ethereal body, not the physical body. 2 main points can be made about a relationship between melanin and chakras. First, the locations on the body in which chakras function are associated with the embryological origin of melanin. Melanin is found in the neural crest of the developing human cell. Some of the derivatives that migrate from neural crest cells are the sensory nerves and ganglia, which receives impulses from sense organs, autonomic ganglia, and the adrenal medulla. All of these body sites are critical for chakra functioning. Secondly, melanin has been proposed to be effective as a device for radiation-less conversion of the energy of harmfully excited molecules into innocuous vibrational energy. McGinnis and Proctor, 1973. In addition, if melanin can be thought of as an amorphous semiconductor, then one can see how the conductive properties of melanin can increase the kinetic energy of electrons, propelling them into excited states. Melanin in the surface of the skin, in the internal organs and the nervous system, can enhance a person's connection to the spiritual world and act as a battery charger for the chakra system. In conclusion, the chakra system is a human body's direct link to the spiritual realm. From the base of the spine to the crown of the head, a spiraling energy force rises to awake a person's spiritual consciousness. Although people are generally aware of their spirituality, proper meditation is the key to maximizing spiritual experience. Meditation can allow one to quietly dwell in the dark matter of the universe and be at one with the creator of this world. The dark matter of the universe and the blackness of melanin are the material planes that connect our mind and body to the spiritual world. Our ancient carbon organic ancestors were born into the science of alchemy by genetics. Simply carbon organic tribes, families, and clans, as such, saw that by the utilization of certain raw materials of Earth, it allowed for the development of metals, foods, materials, fuels, etc., as well as ways to develop new substances in order to preserve the planet, as this would allow for the production of new materials and ways of improving our lives without over-harvesting Earth's resources, as you see, so-called modern man doing today. Furthermore, these great alchemy realized that everything in the universe is made up of elements which, in order to understand the universe, they had to come to fully understand the very elements of which the living and unliving universe is composed. However, the carbon organic Tamarian alchemy went a step further in that they taught and dealt with the mastery of mental forces instead of just the material physical elements. What this means is simply that the transmutation of one kind of mental vibrations into others is possible, instead of just focusing on the altering of one kind of metal into another. This science called alchemy also addresses those who will say, how can we utilize or control the elements when all members of humanity are the same? To him or her it teaches that just as each element is different, each member of humanity is also chemically different in varying degrees of genetic potency, as is each family, race, or DNA. With this knowledge in mind, what is interesting when looking at the modern standard of medicine, as far as carbon organic tribes, families, and clans are concerned, does not address your blood chemistry, physical makeup, or anatomy. Instead, it is designed for hybrid albinos. The Earth, called Ta, Tamtu, Tiawat, Jia, and even Tiamat, is very much alive, thereby has a direct effect on the physical composition of all members of humanity in varying degrees of genetic potency. The reason for this is because the very physical body, or bacteria, which make up your flesh, are composed of the actual elements, nutrients, chemicals, and components of the soil of the Earth. Put another way, the Earth is composed of 99 base or prime elements, and your body is also made up of those same elements. Thus, you are not just an entity living on Earth, but more importantly, you are an entity made up of the very components of Earth, which makes each of you a part of this planet. All members of humanity, especially in the case of those of the carbon organic tribes, families, and clans, need to be made aware that your heritage and genes are unique, in fact, the most uniquely superior of all the other families on this planet. As such, members of humanity, especially those of you, of the 9 ether carbon organic stock of humanity family, as direct relatives of the alchemy must learn to be the best in all endeavors which you were created to be involved in by your genetic parents. As a result, you will and must, as previously discussed in this webisode and others, develop the willingness to research and investigate your story, genes, music, etc., simply the ancient Tamarian realities, which is necessary in order to know who you were, your past, where you are, your present, thus determining where you are going, where you will be, and how you will get there, your future. The very word melanin comes from the Greek melan, meaning black, which tells you immediately that these original beings, as carbon organics with this chemical or hormone, were and are. Thus, as you take this quest into the learning about the universal, solar, and planetary guardians known as Neteru, their attributes, which elements they uncovered, and how they work through your genetic DNA, RNA, and chromosome structure, you will discover the need for certain foods in your diet, as well as which vitamins and minerals you need that will allow for you to become supreme beings once again, through the active activation of your supreme melanin. We say this as the melanin, or pigmentation within you, doesn't only cause pigmentation in your eyes, hair, etc., but more importantly, it is found within the cells and structures of the organs, inclusive of the brain. Now the color of melanin ranges from pale yellow through reddish brown to blue-black, which allows it to protect and shield the body against radiation damage, as well as not allowing any energy to escape once that energy has come in contact with it. Thus it appears like all other carbon substances, which have been oxygenized, to the color black. Molecules of melanin go through many chemical changes and reactions, which allow it to have total energy-saving efficiency. And for this reason, the only way for this molecule to be efficient as far as energy is concerned is for it to have the necessary amino acids. It is equally important to note that minerals and vitamins interact with melanin as well. Furthermore, those that are true 9 ether carbon organics possess greater quantities of melanin within their bodies, which occurs in their bodies because they have certain nutrients which are needed to maintain normal melanin functions. Therefore, the more you learn about melanin, the more you will come to realize that your health is directly related to the amount of light exposure you receive and how the body captures and processes this full spectrum of light, which is the combination of all light and energy. The light from the stars, inclusive of the sun, etc., causes your melanin to be green. Yet when it is combined with the oxygen and iron in the blood, it rusts, which has given 9 ether carbon organics as well as other members of humanity in varying degrees of genetic potency our present appearance. Now, whenever light rays leave the sun or your stereo, they travel through space, which is also composed of energy, until it comes into contact with your skin melanin. This is the reason we have mentioned a stereo in our many examples, because sound waves are a form of energy, just moving at a slower speed. So as this happens, the melanin, which has an internal reaction system, stores this energy in the bone marrow of members of humanity in varying degrees of genetic potency in the form of sun heat genes, and reflects only small amounts of this energy from itself. In the ancient Tamarian African culture, the original triad scientists of the order of Re, being Adam Re, Aten Re, and Amen Re, used these 3 forms of black light in countless experiments, thus also came to symbolize the triple darkness of all atoms, whether potential energy, chemical energy, cellular energy, or the 3 types of cosmic rays, which are UV rays, gamma rays, and X-rays, which when they manifest in cellular as well as chemical energy are logged under proton, neutron, and electron. These 3 types of cosmic rays each come in 3 wavelengths: alpha waves, gamma waves, and beta waves, the 3 hands, or triads of Re known as the hands of God. Adam Ray's color is violet, as in ultraviolet rays. Aten Ray is the highest point of the sun, thus G for gamma rays, or high guardian, or high god, which is geometry, geology, and especially since the most energetic wavelengths of electromagnetic radiation is gamma rays. Amen means the hidden one, just as X equals the unknown, or hidden, as in X-rays. These sun heat genes charged with the black light is that which birthed carbon organics are actually solar batteries that are being charged by the solar plexus as well as other electrical charges. Thus it captures all energy. The result is that humanity's battery called melanin has more energy to utilize for metabolism, and your ability to memorize is increased, which aids in making the brain a supercomputer. The hybrid albino teachings and beliefs is the manifestation in flesh of ghosts, which are conscious yet unconscious, gases that have no sun, heat genes left within their formula of genetic encodement, whereby it is pale, colorless, and labeled by them as being white in color, as if it is a good thing, which it is not, because, of course, white is the last stage of color as ghost, and its posterity who reside amongst many members of humanity, such as those amongst the hybrid albino. It is a fact that your melanin gets this charge of energy from your surroundings, which means that you, as a melanin-dominant person, can charge up just by being in the sun or around the right type of musical sounds and other energy sources which would help you develop the higher senses. Also remember, light, in its many forms, is a form of nutrition for 9 ether carbon organic tribes, families, and clans. On the microscopic level, melanin molecules go through what is called resonance. Resonance is simply the ability of something or person to move back and forth at a certain rate or speed in space and time. It is done by the voice, instruments, etc., which echoes, thereby filling a place with sound, producing sensations which stimulate the very nerve fibers of the body, and causes all of us as members of humanity, in various degrees of genetic potency, to perceive what unconscious people often cannot. This is because resonance rearranges the electrons in your body and causes these electrons to be able to hold more energy as they vibrate within the melanin molecules. As such, by way of resonance, information is transmitted through the galaxy and processed by our solar system. And since the genetic code of members of humanity is a resonant circuit, it actually parallels with movements of the celestial bodies. Thereby your sun heat genes, of which melanin is a product, is charged and activated by various forms of electromagnetic energy, such as sound, radio, TV waves, microwaves, thermal heat, radiation, visible light, X-rays, UV and gamma rays, which all fall under cosmic rays, as well as the Earth's own magnetic energy. So much so that when your melanin is charged and absorbs energy, it stores this energy and passes it to all other cells in the body, allowing these other cells to charge and regenerate themselves. Melanin is made and distributed by specialized cells called melanocytes, which are found within the body's organs, and a specific enzyme controls each biochemical reaction in the melanin chain. Thus, if these essential nutrients, enzymes, etc., are present, then melanin will be produced in large quantities. If, however, these enzymes are lacking, the individual as a member of humanity will appear or manifest in a pale and pasty skin hue, with silvery or yellow hair and steel blue eyes. When the guardians of Tamarian ancient African formulas and sciences said that certain beings were ghosticized, it was due to the fact that they knew of a certain state or condition of depigmentation, which takes place in the womb that is directly related to certain females, such as those amongst the hybrid albino family, who have an inability to produce sufficient melanin for their developing fetus, while with child. These types of females actually lack sun heat genes in their bone marrow, which are responsible for producing healthy melanocytes, which, under normal circumstances, have to be transferred via the umbilical cord to the fetus. Yet, because so-called modern scientists and doctors, many of whom are pale themselves, know of these sun heat genes, they'll pretend, in their attempt to cover up the realities of melanin, and say she has a bun in the oven, which is an actual admittance, because an oven is where things are supposed to be baked, making them brown or black, though this doesn't happen in the case of these types of melanin, recessive females. They are very much aware of the sun heat genes, so much so that they will actually refer to sun heat genes as mast cells, because they are well aware that they exist and are part of the bloodstream and bone marrow. However, they have to do all in their power to avoid members of humanity learning or knowing this knowledge, because it will cause you to realize how superior all 9 ether carbon organic tribes, families, and clans as a whole are. For this reason, the amount of sun heat genes or melanin centers in the body of you that are true melanin dominant and the descendants of such depend upon the amount of concentrated genes, chemical abundance, electrical charge, type of melanin and its weight, which you possess in your body. Mast cells are a type of cell that plays an important part in the body's allergic response. It is a key component within the bone marrow. Mast cells are present in most body tissues, but are particularly numerous in connective tissues, such as the dermis, innermost layers of the skin. In an allergic response, the allergen stimulates the release of antibodies, which attach themselves to the mast cells. As a result, the mast cells release substances such as histamine, a chemical responsible for allergic symptoms, into the tissue, which is why many that are ghosticized, thus bleached, colorless or pale when they are scared, turn even paler than they usually are as their melanin recessiveness removes what little color they appear to have. There are three major types of melanin groups. 1. Eumelanin, or melanin, which applies the use of eugenics. These types of carbon organics have sun heat genes, which have a higher electrical charge. Thus, these cells are very concentrated in their molecular weight and density and are very absorbent, resulting in the appearance of dark brown to blue-black hued carbon organics, though originally an olive tone green. 2. Pseudomelanin or pheomelanin. Those who have this type of melanin have mast cells or sun heat genes that are a less dense form of melanin, possessing a lower molecular weight and a less of an ability to absorb and store energy. They manifest as having a yellowish undertone and brown to slightly reddish tints to skin and hair. 3. No melanin. Those that are albino and their albino offspring, which are found as a defective gene that has found its way amongst all races. They are susceptible to cancers and certain other genetic disorders. Even further, there are 7 types of melanin manifestations among carbon organics, which gets confused under the misnomer of black that the Guardians or Alchemy students of the Neteru addressed long ago, which fall under the first 2 melanin groups. And there are 11 types of albinos composed of 3 groups, namely blonde hair, blue eyes, red hair, green eyes, and black hair, black eyes, who were grafted at different times in 11 different places or experiments, which came out of the 3rd melanin group, which was originally silver-haired and with colorless eyes, called Binu in ancient Tamarian culture. Pure carbon organics are those guardian beings that originally appeared green, as in the green color of nature in its life and health before coming to this world environment filled with iron, hence its use within the word environment, which did cause them to rust over time. A true carbon organic is the blue-black, purple-black to dark reddish-brown child of melanin who has within their very DNA the power to communicate interdimensionally with those of their genetic seed. We say this, as each racial family of humanity has its own growth rate, blood values, bone, and neurological sequence that proves how each racial family is unique and yet interdependent upon the other. Black to dark reddish-brown child of melanin who has within their very DNA the power to communicate interdimensionally with those of their genetic seed. Now the largest population of people on Earth is the carbon organic family, who has certain main features which makes you the most unique and superior peoples of this great planetary home of ours called Mother Earth, as this is a feminine planet having feminine forces called centrifugal, thereby making the females of Earth more advanced as far as developmental skills and abilities than the males. Thus the female survival rate is greater than that of the male, for females were here first. So we say to all of you as members of humanity that you must always remember your bodies are the vehicles that have been given to you by the galactic, solar and Earth Guardian descendants and the Earth Guardian ancestors, children of the Most High, in order that you utilize it to earn your way back to the stars, amongst the great galactic family who do live in your very DNA.